Hey everybody, it's Emily from ARG Schooling, and today I'm going to film one of my favorite videos of the year, my 2016 Year in Books. Every year for the last maybe 7 to 10 years, in some format on the internet, I have been cataloging my year in books, and I do these in categories. I think this started on a homeschool forum ages ago, and I've just always done it, so I'm going to do that today. The best history or historical fiction I read this year, I actually don't have a physical copy of the book, but because I read it on my e-reader, but that would be The City of Thieves by David Benioff. This book was so amazing. I did not even know David Benioff was an author. I love his work on Game of Thrones. When I found out about this particular novel, I was really excited because it takes place during World War II, which is one of my all-time favorite time periods to read about. So this book is about the siege of Leningrad. The city was sieged, people were starving to death, and the story is about these two characters who are unlikely friends who have been thrown together with the task of, you must find a dozen eggs. And they have all these adventures, and it's such a strange book because it almost is funny and witty and poignant, and I really, really loved it. It was an amazing book. I highly recommend it. City of Thieves by David Benioff. The best nonfiction I read this year, I'm going to give to Bill Bryson's A Short History of Nearly Everything. I really, really loved this book. I did not expect to love it quite as much as I did because it's, nonfiction science. I mean, I like reading about science, but this book is so readable and witty, and he just makes everything sound so interesting. And even my twins are enjoying this book as we read it together. And and you can see it is already, I bought this a year ago, and it's already looking like the Velveteen science book. It's so sad, but it's very well loved. Best new to you author, I'm going to give to Ryan Groudon, who wrote Wolf by Wolf. This was one of my favorite books this year. It's just such a ridiculously good, fast-paced story that is about an alternate world in which the Axis powers win the war, and the main character has to murder Hitler in order to save the world. And it's just such an awesome story. And I really enjoyed her writing style. I already had the second book. I also have The Walled City by her that I really want to read, so I'm excited to get into more Ryan Groudon's writing in 2017. The best series you read this year, I actually didn't finish a whole series this year, but I did finish The Magician's Trilogy this year. I read the first book in 2015, and then this year I read the second two in the trilogy, and I highly, highly enjoyed it. It was so good. I actually think that the second and third book are better than the first book, which is still a good book. This series is really fun, and if you go into it expecting Harry Potter for grown-ups, which is how it is billed, you will be disappointed. It is not that. This is more of an ode to stories like Narnia, where children discover a new world through a wardrobe and become kings and queens of another land. And I just found that throughout the story, the characters evolved so well, and the stakes get higher and higher, and I really, really loved this series. Most recommended book. I think I'm going to have to give this one to Watership Down because I throw this out there as often as I can because I want everyone to read it. And I was so sad the other day when I saw that Richard Adams had died, but he was 96 and he lived a really long, wonderful life. And I'm so grateful that he gave us this book. It is one of my all-time favorites, and I just think everyone should read it. This is such an underrated story because people are quick to just think of it as a kid's book about rabbits, but it is so much more than that. It is one of the best pieces of literature I've ever read. It's about finding yourself and learning to trust others, and it's a story about the human experience, even though it's rabbits. I love it. Everyone should read it. A book that made you laugh out loud, and I had to think really hard on this because most of the books I read this year were fairly heavy. So I'm going to go ahead and give this to Ready Player One. This has some really funny moments in it. I won't give those away because I want you to read it, and I don't want to spoil anything if you haven't. But there's some really, really hysterically funny moments in this book, and it was just a really fun read. A book that made you cry. I had to narrow this one down because unlike books that made me laugh, this one, I had too many. But I'm going to go ahead and narrow it down to The War That Saved My Life by Kimberly Brubaker Bradley. I have a full review that I will link above, and I think this book was just so beautifully done. It's a children's middle grade, and it's about World War II. Are we sensing a theme with favorite books of mine? It's about a girl who is disabled, and she has to kind of find herself. She's been mistreated by her family, and it's all in my review if you want to watch and find out more, but it's a beautiful story, and it made me cry. Best plot twist. I'm going to give this again to Wolf by Wolf because I didn't see that end coming. I have to say, it completely caught me off guard. Totally didn't see it happening. Best science fiction fantasy. I'm going to give this to Neil Gaiman's American Gods. I read this in anticipation of the series on Starz coming out this year, and I loved it. I need to read more Neil Gaiman, obviously. I've only read a few of his books, but all of them have been fantastic. So I'm very excited to read more Neil Gaiman in 2017 as well. But this book was just stunning. Best children's or YA, I'm going to give to Eva by Peter Dickinson. And I think this is a fairly little known book. I don't know that I've seen anyone else talk about it, but this book is fascinating in such a strange way. It's all about ethical dilemmas. This book takes place in the future, but we don't know how far into the future, but in this future there's few animals left, and most of the world has been taken over by cities, so there's not much wildlife or forests or anything. And this girl has been in a terrible car accident, and the only thing that's salvageable is her brain. And so they make the decision to put her brain into the body of a chimp. And the story is about the consequences of that. And I just think it's so... I'm still thinking about this book, and I read this like at least 6 months ago, 7 or 8 months ago maybe, and I still think about it like, what if you can do it, would you? Why would you? Is it a good idea to do that? And once your body is basically an animal, but your brain is human, are you a human or are you an animal? There's just so much to think about, and I think that this is an important book that people should read. Best read aloud. For my youngest, I'm going to go with Charlotte's Web because this is the first book this year that she really, really got excited about, and it's Charlotte's Web. I love this book. This is one of my favorite books to read aloud, so I was excited that she enjoyed it as much as I did. And for my teens, I'm going to go with Ready Player One because we had a lot of fun reading this book. It was one of my favorite read-alouds of the year. Worst book of 2016. I do not have this book, thankfully. I did not buy it. I got it at the library, and that is You by Caroline Kepnes. I just thoroughly disliked the book. I did not enjoy the characters whatsoever. I didn't like the writing style. I did not like the book. There was nothing redeeming that I can think of, besides it made me worry about people watching me, or how easy it is in our society for people to watch you, because so much of it was through social media, like telling people where you are and what you're doing at all hours of the day, and how that can make somebody want to follow you. I don't know. That's probably the only thing I can say I got out of the story. The best read of 2016, and I think you guys can probably guess from what I've just told you what my best read of 2016 was, but I'm going to go ahead and... Wolf by Wolf. Also City of Thieves, because it was amazing, and even though I just read it, like literally just read it a few weeks ago, it was amazing. But yeah, Wolf by Wolf by Ryan Groudon and City of Thieves by David Benioff tied for my favorite books of 2016. So thank you guys for watching. What was your favorite book in 2016? I'd love to hear about it. Why don't you share down below in the comments so we can talk. And thank you guys for sticking with me this year. I had a great reading year. I read 65 books, or so, no, I'll have 66 books. I'm reading a book right now that I'm almost finished with, so I will have that done. So I'll have had 66 books this year. That is pretty phenomenal for me, I'm going to say. I think my average is somewhere around 60 to 80 books a year, so I'm right in there. I had a great year with you guys and sharing my reading online. I've had so much fun with BookTube, and I look forward to a new year in 2017 and all the awesome books I'm going to read. And I'll have a video up sometime soon with my resolutions and whatnot for reading and homeschooling and life and all of that. And I can't wait to share that with you guys. So I will see you guys in my next video. Happy reading. Bye.